Shin Lamed Gim. Says מצרים Aram Neflאות, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you one. It's known. There are two explanations, two meanings behind this pasuk. One explanation is we may say Mitzrayim shebehem hoyu nisim neflois imrach dug imay goimer lenisim v'neflois sheyara kalparku begulam mitzvah flema just see the lover dem came. Days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, that they were miraculous, wondrous things done. These are only an example for the wonders and the miracles that Hashem will show us in the true and complete redemption. Or maybe only is not so much the emphasis, but the emphasis is that they are an example of Hasheni. In the second explanation is Kumipur, Bazar, like it's explained the Zoyar, Nisan the law said love you shall niflois. Miracles of Mashiach's time, of the future time will be in the way of wonders. Even in comparison to the wonders that was when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. So it's wondrous, not like the dugma. It's not wondrous like going out of Mitzrayim, but it's wondrous in comparison to going out of Mitzrayim. As great and as unbelievable as the Nisim were going out of Mitzrayim, we will still be saying, wow, I can't believe this when we come to the Gula of Mashiach. Yet, despite the fact that the Zohar explains that when Mashiach comes, it's going to be wonders, even in comparison to that. Alpha became a Dama, because it's like Gula, Sidara, and Neflאות. They made Seis Chameretz Mitzrayim, still in all. The Pasuk likens the future redemption, that I will show you wonders to your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim. Even Sheklolis in Hagula, his will be Mitzrayim, since the general idea of the redemption began with going out of Mitzrayim. But therefore, there is still a comparison and association with them, because even the future redemption, even Mashiach's times, is part of and a continuation of what happened when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. Well, so the Rebbe says, since it's a Maimarei said by Achashal Pesach, last days of Pesach is celebrating also Vishal Pesach. Vishal Pesach is the day of Kriyas Yamsuf. So the Rebbe is going to bring the same idea that we find in Kriyas Yamsuf, its comparison to Mashiach's times versus Kriyas Yamsuf, what took place when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. It says, in a similar vein, we find concerning what it says concerning the splitting of the sea. It says, we say this every morning in Oz Yashir, Ad Yaver Am Havaya, till your nation Havaya crosses, Ad Yaver, until they cross Am Zukanisa, this nation that you acquire. Also in this, there are two explanations of the pasuk. And the first explanation is Ad Yavram Hashem Koel Kriyas Yamsuf, that the first part of the pasuk, where it says until your nation Hashem crosses, it's referring to the splitting of the sea. And the second part of the pasuk, it repeats it twice. Ad Yavram Zukanisa, and then when it says until they cross this nation that you acquired, Koel Bekias Hanor, also love, it's referring to the splitting of the river. That's going to be in the future time when Mashiach comes, like it says, that Hashem will dry up the tongue of the river of Mitzrayim, or the sea of Mitzrayim, and he will raise his hand on the river. So, and then afterwards it goes on, says he will split it into 7 tributaries, etc. So that's one way of looking at the pasuk. That the pasuk begins with talking about Yetzias Mitzrayim, and concludes with the splitting of the river that's going to take place later on. Another way of explaining this pasuk, the entire pasuk, when it says twice, Ad Yavram Hashem, Ad Yavram Kanisa, it's all talking about the future. The like the exact language of the pasuk, ad yaver gomer ad yaver, that says it specifically, sheshneim b'loshoin asi, or both of them are talking in future tense. But like me, pasuk kaf yom liyabasha, but nor yavru b'regel sham nisko boy, not like the other pasuk that says that he turned over the sea to dry land, and they will cross by foot. Over there, we will rejoice in it. So we see an interesting change between the beginning of the pasuk in tenses. The beginning is in past tense, and the end is in future tense. The fact that it says he turned over the sea into dry land in past tense, it's referring to what happened in the past, the splitting of the sea. The river they will cross by leg, by foot. And afterwards it says over there we will rejoice in him. So again, that also says in future tense, in the future tense, it's referring to the time to come. Like it also says concerning Mashiach's times, he will raise his hand over the river. That's why it also says, since he will raise his hand over the river will be split. So by foot we will cross the river instead of needing to take boats across the river, etc. So that is, in that pasuk, there's a distinction that the first part of the pasuk it speaks in past tense, and the second part of the pasuk it speaks in future tense. Over there, it's makes more sense to divide and say, okay, first part of the pasuk is talking about Kriyas Yamsuf. Second part of the pasuk is talking about the future time. But in our pasuk, there's no delineation of past and future tense. Both of them are in the future. As opposed to over here, it says, Ad Yavram Hashem, Ad Yavram Zukanisa, until they will cross your nation, Hashem, until they will cross this nation that you acquired. Neim Balosh Nasi, top of page both. Both of them in future tense. Neim Koyal Lavai. So in this explanation, both Ad Yavers, Ad Yavram Hashem and Ad Yavram Zukanisa, is both referring to Mashiach's times. Yet, regardless of if only one of them is referring to Mashiach's times, or both of them are referring to Mashiach's times, where are they spoken about? They're spoken about by Kriyas Yamsuf. Elosh, Afal became Niskarin Zebashiras Hayam, still in all. This is mentioned by the Song of the Sea. How come? But it's the same way how we said that even though the Geula of Mashiach's times will be wondrous, even in comparison to the Geula of Mitzrayim, it still begins with that. It says the same thing about the splitting of the river that will take place when Mashiach comes, begins and is rooted and is sung about in Oz Yashir by the splitting of the sea. Line 4, Kivin Sheklos in Yazet. Hischil V'toli B'kriyas Yamsuf, since the general idea of what will take place when Mashiach comes, where the splitting of the river began and is dependent upon the splitting of the sea, just like there's the idea of the splitting of the sea. When Yidden left Mitzrayim, so too in the future redemption, your nation Hashem will cross when he will raise his hand over the river and he will split it and so on. So now the Rebbe asked, pertaining to these two types of crossing of Yamsuf versus the crossing of Mashiach's times, we need to understand what are the two, not the future concerning the past, that he's going to talk about later, but rather in Mashiach's times itself. According to the second explanation, that both Ad Yavers, since both of them are in the future tense, so there's Ad Yavram Cha'avaya, and then there's Ad Yavram Zukanisa. Why the repetition? Obviously, there's two different things. That's what he's going to focus on to figure out the distinction. Havara to showing Ad Yavram Hashem. First, Havara, the first crossing is that your nation Hashem will cross. And afterwards will be another crossing. Ad Yavram Zukanisa, until this nation that you acquired will cross. From examining the exact expression of the pasuk, we could say that the difference between these two Ad Yavers, that they're both going on Mashiach's times, Shavuot, the Shoinad Yavram Chavaya, the first crossing until your nation Havaya crosses, Shuril Shem Havaya is connected with the name Yud Kevov, Ilu Avor Ashniya, as opposed to the second crossing, Ad Yavram Zukanisa, until it crosses this nation that you acquired, Ilamayla Mishem Havaya is higher than the name Yud Kevov, because it doesn't mention Hashem's name, it doesn't mention Yud Kevov over there. Another idea behind the difference of the first Ad Yaver to the second Ad Yaver is also the Yidden, the level of the Yidden that we're referring to. Why is that? Ad Yaver Am Pastam says Ad Yaver Am Chavaya, until your nation Havaya crosses. Doesn't give any description, doesn't say anything about how it became your nation, just your nation. That's itself. As opposed to the second crossing, it says, Ad Yaver Amzuka Nisa, until this nation that you acquired crosses. That this nation is in a manner of an acquisition. Especially point was explained. But the idea that you have acquired this nation is really a third thing, as he's about to explain. Behind this means after there's the first level of Mashiach's time, until your nation Hashem crosses. Then it says until he crosses without saying Shem Yud Kevavke, higher than Shem Yud Kevavke. And then there's a third level. Afterwards, the pasuk adds a third idea. Amzuka Nisa, this nation that you acquire. That the nation becomes in a way of an acquisition. We see also three stages in the pasuk that we brought earlier in the brackets that you transformed, you turned over the sea into dry land. After the two things, that you turned over the sea to dry land, which took place by Kriyas Yamsuf. Second idea was they will cross by foot the river which goes on Mashiach's times. In the pasuk adds a third idea. Over there we will rejoice in him. I'm on like to explain later on these three in Yom. So similar to what it says, in a similar vein, there's also the multiple things in Ad Yavram Hashem, Ad Yaver, and that's the second. And then the third thing is Amzuka Nisa, even though the difference between these two psukim is, like we said before, that over here in this pasuk, both Ad Yaver is talking about Mashiach's times, but this is Havaya, and this is higher than Shem Kivavke, whereas Haf Yom Liabashim, but no Yaver V'Rogel is talking about just in the present time. Anyway, I'm sorry, just in the present and the future. Ice based. Let's see how much we can cover. This is what I mentioned earlier. That we first be able to understand this, we need to first understand the difference between the splitting of the sea to what's going to be when Mashiach comes, the splitting of the river. Seemingly, you can make says from Eretz Mitzrayim that are neflאות, since like your days going on in the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. This means Shakasav Medamas Hagulas, the Legulas Mitzrayim, the pasuk, like it's the future redemption to the redemption from Mitzrayim. Okay, and if so, what's the reason for the difference between them? Kriyas Yamsuf Nikra Yam L'Shneim Asur Gzar. When it was the splitting of the sea, there was divided into 12 cuts. There were 12 pathways made in the sea. For each one of the Shvatim, every one of the tribes had its own path, its own split in the sea where it should cross. Like Chazal explained on the pasuk in Tilm that says he cut the seas into the sea into cuts in the plural. It doesn't say there was one split. There was multiple splits because there were 12 splits for the 12 what? Also, loving number in the future time it says we call it Shimon Nachalim, top of page Zion. he will hit it into 7 tributaries. Since we are likened, the future redemption is similar, we said, to the redemption of Mitzrayim. So both of them should have been the same, the splitting of the sea and the splitting of the river. Either both by the splitting of the sea should have been divided into 12, as well as splitting of the river when Mashiach comes should be divided into 12, or both should be divided into 7, both splitting of the sea and the splitting of the river. The Rebbe asks another question. We need to understand Lama is calling the Kriyas Yamsuf. Why did they even have to be the entire idea of the splitting of the sea? Seemingly, if it was because the reason, because they had to reach Eretz Yisrael, Hashem has many different ways how to accomplish taking the Yidden to Eretz Yisrael without the need of this type of miracle. Why it have to be specifically through the splitting of the sea? And then the Rebbe brings the famous thing that we always bring down from Taisus, and the Frat of Yam Vor, but Taisus, especially according to what's explained in Taisus. It's not like they crossed the sea, but the very side of the sea, the very shore of the sea, that they went into the sea, that very same shore, but further on was where they came up from. Taisus, in the Gemara, there is over there an image included over there. I don't know if Taisus made that image, but it's included in the Taisus that shows that they went like in a half circle. They didn't cross from one shore to the opposite shore of the Yamsuf, but they actually went in a half a circle within the sea, and they went into the sea from one part of the shore, and they went around and turned and made a half a circle and came up on the same shore, but further down. So if so, obviously the idea of crossing the sea was not to be able to get to the other side. The joke goes, why did he cross the road to get to the other side? There was no getting to the other side. They came back on the same side. We need to understand why there was the whole idea of the splitting of the sea. The simple reason is because they had to get rid of the Egyptians that were chasing them. Again, like the Rebbe said earlier, Hashem has many ways to get rid of the Egyptians, and there was no need for this whole splitting of the sea, if not for, as we're going to speak about, the spiritual component of the splitting of the sea. Because there was a spiritual component to the splitting of the sea, that's why it manifested itself also in the physical world. That in the physical world there was also the splitting of the sea. So the Rebbe goes on to explain the idea behind this is the splitting of the sea was a preparation for the giving of the Torah. This means in the Gulf Mitzrayim. In addition to the fact that the general idea of the exile Mitzrayim was to refine the world in general, that the world should be a place that could be elevated through Torah mitzvahs, as we know that by Matan Torah, the decree that the above should not come down below, and those below should not go up above, had stopped. And instead of that decree, now we were able to elevate and bring godliness down to this physical world. But to be able to have the godliness permeate the physical world and make the physical world into holy things, so the world had to be refined. And that process of the refining of the world, that took place in Golus Mitzrayim. The Befrat is Bnei Yisrael, and especially who had to be refined, the refinement took place in the Yidden, that they were being refined through the process of Golus Mitzrayim, so they should be able to receive the Torah. What's the refinement? So he says in the parentheses, Lifel Barasha Ben by Shoiskapi Vishapet, effect the bad that was innate and inherent in a Yid, the idea of sublimating and transforming the bad that's within them, and by doing so, Yidden became a receptacle for the elevation and for the Torah that would need to elevate and transform the world. Yuchel Kabbalah Torah, so you should be able to receive the Torah. Like it says, that this is all one process. Moshe Rabbeinu was told while he was standing on Har Sinai, on Har Kodesh, that he was told that when I will take the nation out of when you will take this nation out of Mitzrayim, you will serve Hashem on this mountain. So in other words, it's one continuation. So in addition to the Mitzrayim being a preparation and the Gulf Mitzrayim being a preparation for Matan Torah, another stage in this preparation was also through the idea of the splitting of the sea. And a similar vein will also be when Mashiach comes. Be able to receive the Torah of Mashiach. There needs to be an additional refinement, both concerning the world and concerning the Jewish people. That's the reason for the other exiles. All the other additional exiles that followed the Golus Mitzrayim, those as well was about refining the world and refining the Yid. So just like the exile Mitzrayim was not all there was, but there was another stage as well. In addition to the exile, there was also the Kriyas Yamsuf, the same thing, all the other exiles, which are preparation for what we can receive when Mashiach comes. It's not just enough the exiles, but also the V'noisel was in addition to this. Also be the preparation and introduction that he will raise his hand upon the river, he will split the river. Just like there was a preparation and there was an introduction for Matan Torah through transforming the sea into dry land. But by the giving of the Torah, by Matan Torah, that we went through all this preparation, going out of Mitzrayim, splitting of the sea, that was a preparation for what we received on Har Sinai. That was the revealed part of the Torah. The revealed part of the Torah comes in a measure and a bound. Until there's a law in the halachas of Talmud Torah, it speaks about that even someone that studied the entire Torah, he still has an obligation to study Torah further, etc. The very fact that we are saying that you could study the entire Torah and still know there's halacha, you can't leave the study of Torah. Now the person's going ahead and said, okay, I studied the entire Torah, now I can learn other wisdom. But the very fact that Alter Rebbe says that it's possible for a person to study the entire Torah, that means the Torah, the way it was given to us by Har Sinai, the revealed part of the Torah, has an end to it. To be unending, it would be impossible to study the Torah in its entirety. Ashenkin law is opposed to the future time, top of page Ches. Steve, it says, he will kiss me from the kisses of his mouth. That Rashi and Shirashirim and that pasuk explains what's the metaphor of kissing the Yid for the kiss of his mouth. When Gilui Torah Shel Mashiach, it's referring to the revelation of the Torah of Mashiach. It's referring to the secrets of the Torah. Rashi says over there. Pnimius HaTorah, the inner part of the Torah. Shiaruka Meretz Midah, that its measure is longer than the earth, meaning it's believable, it has no boundary. And because that's the difference between the Torah of Mashiach's times, that it's unending, it's infinite, versus the Torah that was given on Har Sinai, that it has a limit. Therefore, this is the reason for the final exile, that it is a preparation for the revelation of the inner part of the Torah. It's incomparably longer than the exile of Mitzrayim. That was only a preparation for the revealed part of the Torah. So since it was a preparation for the revealed part of the Torah, so it's sufficient an exile of only 210 years, plus the splitting of the sea. Whereas us, we have such an unending exile, such a long exile, because of the greatness of the revelation that will be then. The refinement that's necessary and the elevation that's necessary is so much higher. The Indian explanation of this matter is about this difference in the process between what went on in preparation for Nigla the Torah versus the preparation also for Pnimis HaTorah. The Inim before the Geras HaKodesh explained that toward the end of Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh, pretty much Kasu Mehem, the point where it says in the part of Zohar known as Dvar Malchus, the general difference in the revealed part of Torah and the inner part of Torah. The revealed part of the Torah is called the tree of knowledge of good and bad. Good and bad. And the inner part of Torah is called the tree of life. Both trees were located in Gan Eden. Both trees are, in a way, have their positive to it as well. Behind this means to say line 12. Though it says about Torah that behold, my words are like fire, and the Chachamim say, just like fire is not susceptible to impurity, so too the Torah as well is impossible to become impure. So therefore, when we refer to the Torah being Eitz Hadas Tov, it doesn't mean Chas v'Sholem that the revealed part of the Torah has bad in it. But it's called Tov because the revealed part of the Torah deals with and engages with things of bad. It says, Hare, line 13, Nigla, Torah mislabeshes, binyame Tov de levaram, the revealed part of Torah encloses or engages in matters of good and bad to refine them. But the question is, aren't there certain halachas in the Torah that are like beyond this engagement because they're so rare and so on? So that Alter Rebbe also addresses even specific halachas that are not common. They have a root above. And by through refining and clarifying the halacha down here and studying it down here, he elevates those parts of the Torah that are like engaged with the klippa above and separates them from any connection with klippa. This idea of the revealed part of the Torah Shabbat is connected with the sphere of Malchus. That would know that the sphere of Malchus, though it's in the world of Atzilus, but its legs descend into death. What's it mean, death? The Malchus descends into the worlds of Briya Tzira Asiyah to refine the sparks. So too, it's in Torah that comes from the level of Malchus, the level of the revealed part of Torah. The revealed part of the Torah is about refining the sparks, and that's why it's likened to the Eitz Hadas Tov, because it engages with the bad to elevate the good from the bad.